Have right over here, we have our character. Our character's been painted in Photoshop. It's already been cut out, and a background has already been placed on it. And you can see my two layers over here. I'm going to just change the name to this to character so it's not confusing. So I have my character, and then layer one is my background. And you don't have to set the labels up like this, but it's good to know. Now, when we create a new layer in terms of adding type to this, it's just like pasting something on. So that layer will end up being on top of whatever layer you're selected. Ideally, you should have your title in between the character and the background. So it's not difficult to change it after the fact, but if you click on background, now we can go to our type tool. Our type tool is the letter T on our actual toolbar. I'll select it. When I select it, you'll see the tool options change up here, and you'll see over here it says impact. What does that mean? That's just the name of that particular font, okay? And there are a bunch of them. You may not have all the same fonts that I do, but you should have a ton, okay? Regular, you might see that up top over there. This one for Arial Black, it only comes in this regular style, but you might find on other fonts, and I don't know which one will be able to do it, but I'll try Chancery. No, it doesn't give you a couple options. But what you would find in that box next to the font, generally, and let me find a good example for you, would be like the bold, the italic, like right over here. This one says medium for Big Carlson. All right, well, medium is only the one it has over there. Apparently, all the ones that I'm picking are terrible examples. So, but that box next to it are ones that will give you different options in terms of your. Okay, here we go. Italic, bold, bold italic. Some of them don't have different options. The fancier ones don't have different options, but some of the standard ones do. Some of them even have a lot more options. So you might open this up and see like there's 10 different types of Verdana or whatever that I can use up there. Either or. What I would tell you is you should pick a nice bold font. Over here you have this PT and the small t and the big T. This is how big your font is. Now, how big the font is will vary dramatically based on the resolution of your picture. What does all that mean? You don't need to know what that means, but let's just say, for example, like this is, I'm typing up my name, and if you haven't noticed already, the name is typing up in a color. Why is it not doing this color? Well, your color picker for your font is up here, so you can obviously change that color up here if you want. I'm not going to change it right now. I'll just kind of go with what we have. But let's just say I want to make this bigger. I can go in here and I can type the size here, or you could switch to your move tool, and since your move tool should have show transform controls selected already, you can make your font much bigger or smaller as it's necessary. One of the reasons why I made sure that this layer was in between the other two is that if your character happens to sort of like overlap a little bit, that will put the font behind your character. So you don't have to move the character to make the font fit, you can just make the character in front of it. So I've got Max over there, I've got my title typed out, I've used my transform option to make it nice and big. I think I like this color. I'm going to leave it as such for right now. But now what I want to do is I want to add some layer effects to it. Now, we all remembered if we double-clicked on the word here, we can actually change the name of the layer. But if we clicked on the outside area of that layer, this gray area that's selected, and we double-clicked there, some of you might have done that already in the past and accidentally gotten, love of God, accidentally gotten a layer style window to open up. All right, the layer style window gives us a lot of definition so we can still kind of see what I have up over here. But when we look at layer style, you'll see a whole bunch of checkboxes here, and each one of those checkboxes is an effect that you can also manipulate. So the first one I'm going to do is bevel and emboss. I'm going to try bevel and emboss. When you click on the box right away, you see a little bit of a variation. What happens in bevel and emboss, it kind of tries to make that lettering a little three-dimensional. Now, you might not think it's enough. So what I'm going to do while I'm selected on bevel and emboss, I'm going to look at everything over here has changed. We have a lot of different sort of slider bars and click buttons over here. My recommendation to you is just play with those bars. Like one for size, you can see how it makes the bevel and emboss thicker or thinner. Okay, I can look over here and see the style of the bevel and emboss. Just like we had drop downs for the fonts, I can have emboss, which just might make it pop out. I can make it the outer bevel or inner bevel, and you guys can all check those out and play with them and see what you like the best. Some of them might look like nothing's happening, others might look pretty good. And again, you can mess with the size of that. You can mess with how soft or hard it is, and that's just the edging on the actual embossing. You can change the color of the embossing, and you can change how bright or dark that is. Remember, we had multiply and normal. I'll go ahead and change that to another color, and we'll see if it changes anything on my picture. And not really. I'll up my opacity, and you might notice that it changes now. There you go. So you can all play with those effects over there. Bevel Emboss is one of them. Stroke. What does stroke do? Stroke adds an outline around the whole thing. I did that stroke and automatically it's been set to this color for some reason. Guys, do me a favor. I'm recording. Quiet down a little bit. You can enlarge that stroke and you can see what that does to it. Okay, you can alter that. You can make that on the outside of your letters, on the inside of your letters, from the middle of your letters, whatever works for you. You may not like it. Don't use it. Okay? There are inner shadows, drop shadows. You might find that some don't work well with others. So if you're doing a bevel and emboss and inner shadow, you might not notice anything. I'll try inner shadow now. I'll try kicking up its opacity. I'll start playing around with the sizes and see what that does. And you can see what it does to it. You might find when you try different effects that it gives you a different look on your thing. Okay, this makes it look like it's cut out. I could do that and a stroke, and I can try the stroke around it and just change that to a color that's like a little bit easier on the eyes and do a little outline around it. Could make that very fine or very thin. All right, and again, all about the layer effects is simply just playing around with them. Color overlay. What does color overlay do? Maybe after you've added those effects, you've realized I don't like the color that I picked originally. You can go to color overlay and then literally just change the color here, and it'll change it to whatever you want to pick after the fact. All right, so that will redo all your effects and then just simply just adjust the color of what they're going to be. Gradient overlay, it's like adding a gradient to it. If you're doing a gradient already, you may not notice it. Pattern overlay, you can literally add a pattern to your actual work. This may not work necessarily when you have other options going on it. So right now you can see my pattern overlay. I've added that. And now that pattern's inside of it. I can change how bright or how dark it is. I can change how big the pattern is or how small the pattern is here. And when you look at the actual patterns itself, there are folders upon folders upon folders of different options for you with different things. And you can actually upload your own patterns after a while. Outer glow and inner glow. Again, go ahead. You can change the outer glow and inner glow. You have options here on changing the color. You could change how big that is or how small it is. You could change how noisy it is, meaning like is it all slightly like speckled like this or is it really kind of smooth? And again, your job is to go ahead and play with all of these. What I'm looking for in the title is I'm looking for that you've added at least some layer effects to it. And once you're done with those layer effects and you have it exactly the way you want it and you like it, you can go ahead and export it out. You can also, since this is still an editable text layer, you can go back in with your text tool and you can change the lettering or retype and all your effects will still stay on. Those effects are all literally just on your characters. And if you haven't guessed already, you can actually even go to your character. And you can double click here and add an effect on your character. One of the ones you might like would be doing like an outer glow. So let me just find my outer glow. And you can see it'll add the same exact glow that I already have set over here. Or you can go change it completely to something different, change the size, change the styling of it, change however you want. So what I want to see on your comic book cover, I would love to see your title. I don't care if you put a lot more other stuff on there. You can put issue number 1, you can put whatever. But I do want to see some font. I want to see it nice and large. And I'd like to see effects on it, some sort of effects, even one. Okay? Once you have this set up and done like this, you can go to File, you can export it out, export as, and export as a JPEG. And you might as well kick the quality all the way up, export it out. That exported file is the one you should attach to your assignment. And that will finish up our comic book cover. So those are layer effects and the type tool. The video will be posted